Hey love, a lot of people see me as a rebel in my field and they like that about me, but I want to touch on something that's really important about that. You're probably a rebel if you like that about me. And the ironic thing is none of us want to be rebels. We only rebel because we know that what we're being asked to fit into isn't working. So as the story goes, as a practitioner, when I only had my bachelor's degree at the time, so I was working in a psychiatric unit, and one of the grown men in the psychiatric unit had shared for the first time his story, and he felt vulnerable, he felt exposed, and I could see very clearly what he needed, which was somebody to keep him safe during that time of vulnerability, because after the entire length that he was there, I came in, and according to him, I was the first therapist that he felt comfortable to facilitate his story. And what ended up happening is after he felt scared and vulnerable, he went to his room and he started cutting himself with his earring. He took his earring out and started cutting himself. And I understood what he needed in that moment. So I said to the nurses, the psych nurses, I'm going to go be with him. I'm going to go sit with him through this process. And they basically said, no, you're not going to do that. You have no rights to do that. It's not your place to do that. I did it anyway, and what ended up happening is that they kicked us both out of his room and locked the door behind him. So this grown man was in a fetal position outside of his bedroom door, crying in front of everybody, and they made me walk away from him. I left the psychiatric unit that day, and I never went back. That is my experience being in the system. And in my experience, although there is a time and a place for medications and for institutions, the system by and large does not work, and it wants to keep us sick, and even medical doctors are taught basically how to manage. They're not taught how to cure. And curing somebody is impossible. The body itself has to cure itself. Nobody can come in externally and cure the body. You can give the body drugs that might facilitate the healing of the body, but you have the nocebo effect, which is you can give somebody all of the drugs in the world, all of the surgeries, all of the treatment, and it still doesn't work. Or you have the placebo effect, which is you give the person fake treatment and it does actually work based on beliefs. So by and large, our system, when somebody is experiencing a dark night of the soul, they are thrown into a system that will drug them, that will put them in, lots and lots of treatments to facilitate the management of those symptoms. And then they're told that they're going to have to manage those symptoms for the rest of their life. And most people believe that this is true. And what I've seen in the system, working in the system, and I've since chosen to leave the system, especially of diagnostics, I have seen laundry list after laundry list of different psychologists, different psychiatrists diagnosing the same exact person with a totally different disorder. So a person, if they're diagnosed, they're very likely to be diagnosed with multiple disorders. So that in and of itself says something. And in other cultures, most people are brought into the group consciousness to be integrated and to be shown love and to make meaning of their symptoms. And their symptoms might be, we feel insane in our head. The dark night of the soul is this insane searching for the thing that fragmented us, the memory of when did I split off? When did I become this thing? Because I know something happened to me traumatically, but I can't access the memory. So the dark night of the soul is kind of sleeping through the process of trying to access a memory that we don't actually have words for, because most likely the traumatic experience that happened to us, and it could be something so simple, but it's still traumatic to somebody else, and it could be something so huge. But the traumatic experience that happened to us often happens before we have the mental capacity to put words to the story. So we're just feeling the sensational experience of the trauma, and that's the vibration that we get stuck in throughout our lives. And we kind of go, okay, I need to search for who I was before that vibration came into my being, before this traumatic experience made me split off because I wanted to escape the human experience because it's too traumatic to be here. So the dark night of the soul often comes when somebody is ready. Okay, I want you to understand this deeply. The dark night comes when somebody is ready to awaken. And what happens is that most people who are in the dark night, and I'm going to use an example. I had a friend tell me the other day that her partner's stepdad was put in a mental institution, and he was saying, I'm having an awakening. And they tried, they locked him up, and they also put him, they had to make him go. He didn't want to go. He was being combative. And I said, anybody in their right mind who's being locked up for no reason is going to be combative. So we have our people who are our most vulnerable people, who already are feeling isolated. They're already feeling powerless. They're feeling lonely. They're feeling insane. They're believing their thoughts. We're not educating people to self-regulate. We're not educating people that their thoughts are just sensational experiences moving through them. And what most people do with their thoughts is they go, oh my God, I'm having this thought and I'm either suicidal or I'm homicidal, or I am having this experience in my head that it must mean something. I must believe these thoughts. And we don't have to believe our thoughts. We don't have to believe our feelings. So if we can take a step back and witness ourselves experiencing the feelings and the thoughts, right there, we're one step ahead of the game, because we can control the perceptual experience that we're having. But most people aren't taught this. Most people are told, okay, if I see kids being thrown into the system really, really young, and my son, he would have been one of those kids if I wasn't his mom. He went through a dark night of the soul, which if I would have thrown him into the system, which people in our culture they don't know what to do. So they go, okay, fix my kid or isolate my kid because I can't deal with this. And then the kid forever is given drugs they're a guinea pig for drugs that most of the time don't actually work. And again, I'm not saying that there's no place for medicine. I'm not saying there's no place for institution, but by and large, institutions want to keep you in the institution. So, and that goes for religious institutions, it goes for schooling institutions, it goes for the medical institution. It wants to keep us sick most of the time. And I don't think it's a conscious thing, but the reality is if we aren't sick, we don't need the institution, okay? So in our culture, if you're having a dark night of the soul, what's gonna happen, most likely, is they're gonna throw you in a psychiatric unit, they're going to tell you you're crazy, and they're gonna tell you that you're gonna have to deal with these symptoms for the rest of your life, and you're gonna manage them. And one of my students said something really brilliant the other day. We were talking about this invisible timeline that goes on in our 20s and our 30s, our 40s, and excuse me, if you're not, yes, I have some throat chakra stuff coming up about this. I was a little bit nervous to share because honestly, most people who do step outside of the system are either shunned or killed. And we can see this over and over again. And we can say that that's conspiracy theory, but over and over again, it is deemed to be true. So to step outside of the system and then speak out against the makings of the system is a little bit, unnerving to the throat chakra. So my student said that if we deviate from, because there's the success side of being in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s. In your 20s, you're going to be graduating college and then maybe finding your mate, and in your 30s, you're going to be having kids. And the other side of that is you don't go to college, you're homeless, you're a junkie, whatever. There's the negative to the positive aspect, according to society. And she said most people don't allow themselves to go to the negative side because, or when they do go to the negative side, they don't know that they can get back. They don't actually know their own resilience. So what I want to drive home to you today is that if you are experiencing a dark night of the soul, and I know that there's searching going on, I know that there's this darkness, there's this, I want this to end, I don't want to be on earth. We think we don't want to be on earth, but really we just don't want to be on earth this way because it's dark and scary and we're afraid of what we'll find when we wake up. What I want to say is that you can and will wake up, and that the dark night is actually the precursor to awakening. And if you are medicated, you're diagnosed with many mental illnesses, but you know that you're experiencing something that is far more spiritual than it is a mental thing going on, and then people are treating you like you're a mental case, you might be on the bridge to waking up, and you don't have to believe your diagnosis. You don't have to buy into this idea, okay, I'm bipolar, I'm gonna be bipolar forever, I'm schizophrenic, I'm gonna be schizophrenic forever. We don't have to believe the effects of what goes on in the dark night and then extend them into the future. So you might be presently in the dark night, But I'm telling you that the morning comes. The morning comes when you believe that the morning comes. The morning comes when you take control, just like the body itself is the only thing that can heal itself. Nobody outside of you can heal you. You can have the best therapist, you can have the worst therapist, and maybe the worst therapist is the person that actually heals you because whatever, they taught you how to be a shitty therapist and you're like, wow, I could do a better job than that or whatever. The point is that you can and will heal yourself. And I know that it's scary to be in the dark night, but you're not going to get over it until you get through it. So point is, mainly, I don't want the world believing that, one, they're not going to wake up from the dark night. I don't want you to believe that you are your diagnosis. Your diagnosis is something that doctors or practitioners like me will use to basically define how to manage you, okay? How to manage those symptoms, but you're not your symptoms. So a diagnosis is not a fact. It's a man-made construct about what your symptoms mean and how to deal with those symptoms, because it makes other people feel unsafe to have somebody outside of their little norm acting, or thinking thoughts that they don't want them to think because they're scary. So if you're thinking really scary thoughts in yourself, you don't have to believe your thoughts, okay? And it's really important if you're in the system to really recognize that it's made up. Your diagnosis is made up to be able to manage your symptoms. It's not made up because that's you. And in other cultures, the exact same symptomology could be considered a gift in other cultures. So, point is, you're not your diagnosis. And if you were thrown into the system during your dark night of the soul, I want you to know that you can get out of the system and that you don't have to believe you're never going to wake up. The dark night is the precursor to awakening, okay? So I've gotten a lot of traction lately, and as an empath, that has made me go, oh, I gotta back up and ground. But with that traction comes this reality that, like, wait, hey, you're here. Wow, I'm talking to you, and you're here with me. So I want to say, if this resonates with you, I'm Stacy Hoch, life coach, rebel, mother of 3, and an author. And look at this image, okay? It says imperfectly sane, but it's a pun. So she's saying I'm perfectly sane, and she's rooted in sanity, right? But the world and your brain makes you feel absolutely, totally, absolutely insane. And it's so hard to trust yourself or believe yourself when the world is saying that what you're experiencing deviates far too much from what other people experience. So I want you, one, obviously to read my book, Imperfectly Sane. You can find it on Amazon. But 2, trust, my love, that this might be your winter, but the spring will come. And it's not, your diagnosis is not the truth of you. It's something that you're experiencing, and it's here for a reason. And your dark night, if you're not diagnosed in the system, good for you. Your dark night will lead to the morning. And I know that you just want to get out of it right now. You want to just say, like, screw this. I either want to kill myself, or like I want to do drugs to get out of these feelings or to stop these thoughts. You will wake up, but you have to get through it before you can get over it, because you're always going to be under it if you don't let yourself go through it. And you don't have to believe what the world says about you when you do go through it, because you're not what the system wants to label you as so that they can manage you. You're not that. You're far greater than that, and the morning will come, okay? So I hope this was helpful, and I hope that your morning comes really, really soon. But if it doesn't, I want you to know that you're so resilient and that you can get to the other side of those socially acceptable norms where most people don't let themselves go to the depths of their own despair because they're afraid they'll never come back. But the truth is, you can't go to the true success side of living a human experience if you don't go to the depths of your despair, because that void is the very thing that when you feel empty and ridden of yourself, that's the perfect place to create and build yourself, okay? You can and will wake up. The morning will come, and you don't have to believe anything in between. Bye.